Hey guys, this is Ryan from Athletic Conceptual Training. We're serving the Livermore area and we really want to partner with you. Students, if you're ready to get better in basketball, volleyball, tennis, come and check us out. Look at our Instagram. We have a lot of content and we got more coming. We're one of the fastest growing company in the Bay Area and there's no other place to be. Parents, if you really want to unlock the potential of your student athlete, come and partner with us. Or if you yourself want to come out and get some training with Coach Ryan, don't hesitate. All you have to do is click the link below. Unlock your fullest potential. Be ready. Get up, act today. Let's see you soon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Athletic Conceptual Training, where we celebrate the journeys of exceptional athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders who inspire the world. Today, it's an honor to spotlight a true hometown legend, straight from the heart of Oakland, California, from the proud halls of Oakland Technical High School, where champions are born and dreams are molded, to the national stage of collegiate and professional basketball. Alexis Gray-Lawson's story is a testament to Oakland's spirit, resilient, fearless, and driven by excellence. Her journey not only honors the vibrant community that raised her, but also continues to lift up future generations through coaching and mentorship. It is with deep respect for Oakland and for Tech, the school that helped shape a champion, that we welcome Alexis Gray-Lawson to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Really huge. I am so humbled and honored to have you on this show and to have you say yes to even join to talk to me. But I'm just gonna jump right in. You grew up in Oakland. Can you share what it was like being raised in such a vibrant and culturally rich city?
Yeah, I mean, I loved Oakland. I mean, growing up, I always talk about I grew up on 18th Street. My grandmother lived in Lower Bottom. All my friends lived in East Oakland. So I kind of got to get a piece of everything. I grew up at Lafayette Park, trying to go outside, be with my cousins and enjoying that space and being able to come down to Campbell Village and play and go to school and go to middle school here. And then also being able to go to school in East Oakland. And the Rainbow Center kind of being like the testament to like who I became. So everything about Oakland I love, from, growing up, you see, people always talk about like their experience of, the street lights coming on and you being outside all day with your friends and your family and just learning like what it is to be about community. And, back then there was a time where, you saw older folks, you helped them out. They saw you out of pocket, they checked you. So I really come from a very that is really my core memories kind of has started. And, I miss it a lot.
Yeah. Oakland Tech has such a proud history of producing leaders and athletes. How did your time there shape you as a person and as an athlete?
So I always saw our student athletes, even at Tech now, Tech was probably the best experience I ever had. Okay. We talk about college and people are like, oh man, when I go to college or I had a great college experience, nothing was like my Tech experience. I was incredible. I had incredible coaches and teachers. I had an admin staff that really kind of shaped how all of us was going to be. They were like our parents. We was with them probably the majority of the day. And I had incredible teammates who I loved and who were my best friends. And so, anything that I was experiencing at that time. And at that time, I would say there was nobody dealing with what I was dealing with, because it's kind of I was always the underdog. Everybody kind of knew about, the Bubba Paris twins. Everybody kind of knew about Devin A. They are tall in stature. And I'm like this little kid who, is super small, but, has this thing. Right. And so what I learned at Tech very, very quickly, freshman year, I remember having to play basketball against Marshawn and Josh, you know what I'm saying? And, just that experience because they were on the basketball team and we were trying to, get on varsity. So, I can remember, Hook Mitchell coming up to our school and me and him really building our relationship at that point, and he becoming a mentor of mine, and him coming to run our practices in preseason, and like we talk about the horror stories of that, of like wall sits and miles and push-ups. So, it was just so many influences, and, obviously the Tech alumni, they always came back. It was a point where, you got so many people that came back and poured into you and like knew, what you needed at that particular time. And, at that point, there had not been any, for me, there hadn't been anybody in the WNBA. So, my journey kind of really began there, and I really didn't know what that was going to look like for me long term.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, something that you talked about was something that I got a snippet of even at the alumni game. And I mean, you've done so many of them, so you could let me know how it feels. But it felt, I've never felt so comfortable and like family oriented in the presence of greatness, if that makes sense. Like, there was just all this greatness around us. We had, like you, Pico, Mr. Fab, Earl, all the, the legends, the knowledge that was in that building. I mean, but then at the same time, it was just like
the family reunion.
It really was. And it was just like, I can't, only Oakland could do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, it's funny because it was never really a thing, like I know the Centennial, at most schools did it, but athletics, really, we hadn't done it. I know the OAO had started it for a while and then they kind of stopped. And I think my idea was, how do we celebrate those alumni, and it not just to be about us reaching out when we need something, it being where we can reach out and they can pour into our kids something different. And I think it was a really great to see. I think people, your generation always thinks you're the first ones to do something, right? But like there was Raheem Stevens before me, right? There was Johnson before me, right? And so because they paved the way, I got to pave the way for so many other young Black girls that are going to come through Oakland and everywhere else, right? And so I think it was really, for this particular Hall of Fame, it was important to me to just pay homage to like what they did and how they're not celebrated. And that goes for Noah. I mean, like, Noah Hingston is the king of track. You know what I'm saying? Like he can, Earl was like a freak of nature. He was the LeBron at Tech before it was LeBron. You know what I'm saying? And I think that people don't know those things. They only know about me. They only know about Leon Poe or Josh Johnson or Marshawn Lynch, right? And they don't get this rich Tech history. And I think for our kids, it's really important for them to be able to see it, because I think if you can see it, you can emulate it.
Yeah. And that's, that's what spearheaded this podcast, really. It was getting everybody in like this one place, so that, and I didn't, even when I was titling, I was like, I don't know what to call it. And I just, Bay Area Legends. That's it. That's what the segment is called. If you want to learn about Bay Area Legends, go right here. And it's, man, you guys have done such a great job. You have done such a great job as the athletic director of Oakland Technical High School, in addition to your life accomplishments. And what you explained is what I felt to the T. So, like, it's cool because, like whenever you set a plan, you're like, I want it to be this. But then when it actually works, you're like, okay.
Exactly.
It's actually working. You had an incredible college career at Cal. Can you walk us through your mindset stepping into such a competitive environment right after high school?
Yeah, I think, I don't think I understood what I was walking into, honestly. It was kind of like unmarked territory at that particular time. Like, Cal wasn't really like a winning program. I remember actually, first being recruited in the 7th grade by Cal. And, I had so many experiences with my stepdad. Like, he took me to Cal every weekend, like he loved the campus. There was like our favorite pizza was over there. There was like an arcade, and like, that's how we spent our Saturdays. So for me, Cal was really nostalgic because it was something that I was used to, and it felt like a natural growth. It's kind of like if you were at Claremont, you just went to Tech, and from Tech, you just went to Cal. And I think all of us kind of felt that way at that particular time. And I'm assuming like that's probably what pushed like Marshawn to go there and fail. You know what I'm saying? In Devon A. You know, it gave me the same feels that I got when I got on Tech's campus. And so I love the coach. Coach Horstmeyer, she was like, I want you. And I think it's one thing to people to choose you when you're on top, but when they choose you when no one knows you, it's even more special. And I think I'm really a person about like loyalty and thought process. And so for me, it just made sense to go to Cal. Plus my parents really, really love Cal. Obviously, from an educational standpoint, I've always been really, really smart and, you know, the different one out of the group, and different from most athletes at that particular time. And so it kind of just fit into what I was going to do. So I didn't know what that was going to look like. By the time I got on campus, I think there was a air about Cal that these kids from Oakland are now coming onto this campus and they're going to completely shape what Cal is going to be. Right. And so I kind of got to see that with Marshawn freshman year and watch him and kind of see him and Phil kind of go through their stuff.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got on campus, I think I was a little bit more aware of like what my role was going to be. Because you just don't know. You don't know like if it's going to translate, right? Like we see that in college basketball now where you get some incredible high school basketball players and they get to college and they completely fall off. So for me, it was really about how do I outwork everybody else and remembering like the underdog. Because, you know, people love to say that like I woke up and I became an All-American, but it took a lot of like mornings and afternoons, you know, with my dad and Pico to get me to that point and for me to feel confident enough to walk in that. And so by the time I got to Cal, it really was just a matter of like, how do I emulate what I did to high school and just take it to a whole nother level? So I literally went to go play with everybody. Like I was going to work out with Allende. I was, you know, like Tim Pierce at that time was with me. Like those are like my brothers. So when the OAL was like super hot, all those same guys all worked out with each other. So it just makes sense for me to work out with them because if you can compete against them, you're competing against anybody. And so, you know, that really became my routine. So for me, when I got on a campus, it was really just like riding a bike all over again because I really had my brothers and my sisters who I grew up with around me to really kind of guide me in a way.
Yeah. Wow. You know, like one of the things too that I've been noticing along this journey is that two things. One, the OAL prepared you for life.
For sure. For sure. It had that heat. It's nothing like it is now. And it's funny because, you know, we talk about girls basketball and obviously Tech has been dominating for the last, 8 to 10 years. And it was Oakland High when my dad was there for a little bit. So for us, it was a challenge to get through the OEL. And people didn't understand that. Like, we had to go through Castlemont that had Tina Wickett and Kaisha Phelps and, you know, like Larita. Like, we went through some fire. Like, we went through them, and then it was the twins at Mac. And then you had to go to Fremont and play, like, NOLA. And it was heat every single game. You couldn't take any games off. So it just taught you, like, you had to step up to the plate.
Yeah. And then and the other thing that really stands out is that Oakland, the family oriented vibe that Oakland has, and I feel like us in Oakland knows that, but what is portrayed to the world is something different.
Absolutely.
And every time I talk to someone, whether it be you, Audrey Jones, Ty Mack, I don't know if you saw that one, you know, it's all family.
Yep.
It's all family. And that spirit really helps build, like, the community raised us and gave us all of what it takes to be great in the world. And I don't know, I haven't lived anywhere else, but I don't know anywhere else that raises you in that way.
No, I think Oakland also had its growing pains. Like we when I was in high school, we was averaging 100 and something murders a year, right?
Right.
And people don't take like they take that and they run with it and they're like, oh yeah, it was just a bad place to get raised. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't talk about like, the violence happened, but it wasn't kids that was, like it wasn't little kids. It wasn't in the parks. There was a code to everything. You understood that code growing up here. Nobody was shooting up any parks or churches or none of that craziness. Like
Right.
it was very much about how do we help each other get up out of here.
Yeah.
And if somebody saw, if you was in the streets and you saw somebody that had potential, they guided that potential to steer away from it. So I think that people like lose sight of that a lot because like I always talk about that a lot. And I think it's really easy to get caught up, especially in street activity here. And I just never had that, like obviously my parents were really strict and I couldn't do much, but I feel like I always like the community always found a way to like lift me up and make me feel like, nah, you're way better than this. And so it really kind of gave me this edge over everybody else every time I walked in a room, because I think everybody had a thought process. Like even when I got to the league, people heard I was from Oakland and they expected one thing, and then they heard about me and they got a completely different thing. And so I think it completely shaped and shifted what people thought about Oakland when they met me, which is really ultimately what I wanted.
Yeah. Man, we're just gonna move on. You said a lot there, and I could just get stuck over there. So we're gonna move on. But wow. You became a record holder at Cal, most 3-pointers made, one of the top scorers, so many accolades. Was there a particular moment during your college career where you realized you could make it to the professional level?
I think, honestly, I think the WNBA wasn't really a thought to me until maybe junior, senior year, because then, like obviously, Ashley and Devin A like start, those talks started. And then I had got hurt my freshman year. So like I had this incredible season, player of the year, first freshman player of the year, all this stuff. And I assumed that it would be an easier transition into sophomore year. And 3 games in, I tear my ACL at Kansas. And so that completely shifted my way of thinking and really being like, oh, like I've seen people have knee injuries and never recover and be who they're supposed to be. So I didn't know what that really was going to look like for me. And by the time I came back, it was Devin A and Ashley's senior year. And, they were making decisions. And I kind of felt left out because I was like, where am I going to fit into any of this?
Yeah.
And honestly, because I was slower in my junior year, that's actually what made me start shooting threes, because I didn't really shoot threes. I was never known as a 3-point shooter.
Right.
So for me, I think probably senior year, I kind of came into my own and finally like everything started to just connect. And I like just started, it was like a crazy, like from end of December to February, like I was averaging something like 40 to 45 points a game. So it was just like one of those things where my mind just kind of shifted. And then when we didn't make the tournament that year, I really didn't know how the league was going to perceive me. And so when we started at the beginning of the year, I was a first rounder, and then I dropped because we didn't make it to the tournament. So it's like all those little things like really kind of helped shape that thought process. But I really didn't think about it. I don't think really until like the end of junior year, senior year, that this could be a possibility. And like I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Winning the WNIT Championship must have been incredible. How did that experience impact you as a leader and a competitor?
I think it showed me that I could lead. I've always kind of been in the background where I kind of always led by example type thing. And I think I was kind of by myself senior year. It was Tasha, and LG. So for the 3 of us, it was really trying to, how do we guide, there's 6 freshmen who are McDonald's All-Americans. How do you guide that? And, earlier in the season, I thought we were going to have Tierra, which was a lot of reasons why. I wanted to stay. You know, I had seen Tierra play a million times. I was a huge fan of hers. And then, you know, before we even get to preseason play, she goes down and we find out she has a heart defect, right? And she can never play again. And so that completely shifted me in a lot of different ways when one of your really good friends is not able to play with you, but also it just made me step up. And so I think really winning the WNIT was just a testament to like all the things that I had experienced, you know, while it was at Cal. And it made me feel extremely good that it's the only championship that Cal's really have won yet, you know, and so outside of maybe the Pac-10 championship, right? And so for this to be a national thing and for us to be able to do it at home, it was pretty incredible.
That's awesome. When you transitioned to the WNBA and international leagues, what were the biggest lessons you learned about the game and about yourself?
It was no longer about you. It was now about the brand. I think so. It's crazy because I went overseas my first year, and I was in Turkey, and I hated it. Turkey's a beautiful place. I just didn't enjoy it. I was away from home for the first time ever. You know, I'm a kid from Oakland who pretty much stayed home my entire life, and to go to a place like Turkey, and it wasn't like Istanbul where it's a bigger city. It was like a really, really small city called Samsun. So it was I was super picky eater, so I like lost like 60 pounds.
Oh no.
You know, like I wasn't playing, you know, the coach felt that, I wasn't ready. So I sat the bench, which was the first time I had ever sat anyone's bench in forever. And so then kind of going into that experience, you know, I hurt my knee again while I'm out there. Luckily, before I hurt my knee, we were losing by 30 and we were playing Diana Taurasi. And obviously I grew up watching Diana, huge fan. I'm fangirling, but I'm trying not to because, like we're all professionals at this point. And I got to get in the game and I got to guard her. And she started talking mess to me. I started talking mess to her. And honestly, that is how I got my contract in the Phoenix. And she, she made a call and basically was like, you got to look at this kid. Like this kid is different. And I think everybody made a lot of comparisons with me and Cappie Poindexter, just the way that we play, our aggressiveness. And obviously, she had just left Phoenix. And so it was a really easier transition for me to come in and feel kind of like that space. But it was a lot of growing pains. You learn in the league. The league is different. Now you're playing against grown women who have been playing, since the beginning of the time. The way in which you dress, the way you talk, everything is being scrutinized. So for a while, like my first rookie season, I was really depressed. Just trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be and dealing with the expectation of I'm supposed to be successful because I'm from Oakland and I'm the only one. And if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, they're not gonna let nobody else in. And that's just that was to me the thing that kind of was on my shoulders that I was trying to figure out.
Yeah. Wow. A lot of athletes talk about how tough the transition is after the pro career. How did you find your calling in coaching?
I think it kind of found me. Honestly, I had been playing for a couple years and, you're getting older. I've always been, my mom always told me, when you stop loving something, you need to do something else. And so I had made the idea that I was going to go back to school. And that was kind of what my thought process was, I had always wanted to go to law school. I had moved to Minnesota at that point, and so I was like, okay, let's do this. So then, of course, Coach Faith, who's like a staple in Minneapolis, met me. We randomly met. And I was actually working with a nonprofit at the time, Project Divas. And they connected me, and Coach Faith was like, you got to meet this kid. So she met me, and she was like, I need you under me. Just come and be under me for a year. And I was like, I don't want to. I don't know. I never thought of myself as nobody's coach. And then literally I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the process, fell in love with the kids at De La Salle. And then the next year, I had worked that summer with Coach Pat, who was over at Coma Park that year. And he was like, Lex, you got to come here. You got to train these kids. Like, we can win. And that's exactly what I did. I took the head coach's job at Como, took that on for a couple years, won a couple of championships, got to the state tournament twice. And yeah, I loved it. I just love it. And so by that point, it's kind of just been a thing where I've learned that sometimes your ministry is coaching, which is always a tough pill to swallow because you don't want to do something, but then God pushes you to do it. So that's kind of what happened. It's kind of, I was trying to be more obedient than something that I actually really wanted to do.
Got it. Now that you're building future leaders through coaching, what values do you make sure to instill in your players?
I mean, that's a loaded one, but I would say top of my mind would be accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability is super important to me. I try to teach, if you can have accountability, you can be a great leader. Because to me, that means that you are taking the time to, if you're wrong, like you don't know everything, I apologize probably more than most coaches to my kids. I think it's important because it shows you that you're human. But I try to be accountable myself, and I try to make sure I'm on time. And on time means I'm 10 minutes early, right? My kids run. If they don't, I try to teach them to be kind to others and to be humble and not too flashy. We are kind to our opponents, and I also teach them, I think, ultimately that when they walk in a room, as Black women, because I'm coaching Black women, we walk in with 2 strikes, right? We Black and we women. And so what do we do when we walk in this room and everybody's like, right? So we show up the way that we're supposed to show up so that it opens up the opportunity, not for you, but everyone around you as well. So I think for me, those are always like the key things that I think about as I'm coaching, and even in this position as athletic director, how can I continue to make sure that we teach our kids that and prepare them for life after high school? Because, we sometimes as parents and as schools, baby kids. And we baby them because we didn't get that same love, and we want to give them the love. But the reality is that the love that we did not get prepared us for life after. And so, people don't talk about that part enough.
Man, I love that. Coming back to Oakland roots, how important is it for you to represent your city and be a role model for the next generation? You kind of touched on that already just now.
I mean, for me, it's everything. Oakland is everything. I want Oakland to have everything. And it's not, when we say our kids, I don't talk about just the Tech community. I'm trying to figure out ways to be more impactful for all communities. When there's an opportunity that comes up, that opportunity don't just come to my kids. That comes to all kids. When I think back, in a space, we've been doing the Black graduation for OUSD for the last 3-4 years, and it really just came out of vision of how do we break the narrative that we can't get together, because that's always the narrative, right? When I first thought of it, I'm like, I had cousins at Castlemont. I had cousins at Oakland High. I would have loved to graduate with them and be with them and be in community with them. And honestly, it really has, it has been the biggest blessing to me to be able to help shape the next generation, for them to be celebrated, because they should be celebrated, right? Yeah. So for me, Oakland is everything. I take really great pride in being from here. I talk about it all the time. I try, when I do more national stuff, I'm always repping Oakland and the coaches of Oakland. And so, yeah, for me, it is everything. My reputation here is everything. And the people, I try to really connect with the people of Oakland. You know what I'm saying? Like Fab, like those guys are like my brothers. So, we try to show these kids, like, just because I have what I have and he got what he got and Josh got what he got and Marshawn got what he got, it doesn't mean that we can't pour in like normal people.
Yeah.
And we try to keep the humanized part of who we are versus like being all the way up here and no one can touch you or you're not attainable.
Yeah.
Which I think sometimes happens in a lot of cities.
Yeah, that's definitely something. Another thing that hits home for me, and just like as someone who, from Oakland trying to, do his own thing, I really look up to you and Fab and Marshawn and Pico and Noah as role models, because you are you're on my bets, and seeing y'all do it and being able to do it with such pride from our city gives me the drive to be able to do that. And then also to say, shoot, I want to win too,
Yeah. It's enough out here for all of us to eat. And I think that's the mentality that we got to push to this next generation, because everybody's like for self, right?
Yeah.
And you look at other cultures, you look at other backgrounds, right? When I have Asian friends, and when you look at their families and their dynamics, like they're much different than us. And part of it, we can go into history and all that, like connection but the reality of the matter is, when I show up and I'm from Oakland, I represent Oakland, right? Yeah. And when I meet someone and they're like, hey, I need you to do something, I still got to show up. So I never tell anybody no, because that one opportunity that they may get in the interaction with me, they may get something from me, they may grow from me, I might grow from them. And it's an opportunity for then you to go back, like, you say, hey, Lex, can you do my podcast? And I'm like, I got you. Say Lex.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is the next young person that's looking up to you is like, hey, I need this opportunity.
Yeah.
It'll be you. Now you're going to be like, I got you.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a trickle effect, right?
Yep.
But if I'm closed off and I don't want to, I'm like, nah, this ain't for me, then it takes away from our humanity. It takes away from our culture. And that's really what we're missing here in Oakland is our culture. Our culture is fading away because we're not keeping the legacy of what it is.
Well, shit. I'm gonna keep it going. And I really respect what you and the elders have built and grown and developed. I feel it. I can't speak for everybody else, but I just really feel like that passion, that drive, that determination, that love, that security, like that's a family.
All day.
Yeah. When people hear the name Alexis Gray-Lawson years from now, what do you hope they remember most about you?
I think naturally everyone assumes that I would say that I was a great athlete, or that, I was, I broke all these records. But honestly, I'm hoping for a couple things. One, that I was a great wife, that I was a great parent to my kids, that I was a great leader, that I was always humble and generous, and that I was always kind to others. But most importantly, that I always was willing to give back. And I hope that my legacy will be that she never said no in giving back to others. And I try to keep that kind of at the forefront, when I'm tired, when I don't want to do it, when I don't want to move. I think sometimes it's easy when we get into ourselves a little bit. But I'm learning on this journey that the more I say yes, it opens me up to opportunities that I would have never ever thought that I would have had. And meeting some incredible young people that I never even thought I would meet. And like, it's funny because I always hear, people come to me and they're like, hey, can you do this? Or can you talk to my kids? Or can you do this? And they assume that I'm going to say no, or I'm going to say, how much can you pay me to do this? And I never have ever asked for a dime, because the reality of the matter is the money is in the enrichment that the legacy will leave with the kids that you impact. Right. And so to me, that alone is anything you're doing, anything with your passion, the money will come.
Yeah.
Like that's my biggest quote. Like, if you're passionate about something, if you really feel deeply about something, the money portion is just extra, right?
Yeah.
But it's that passion that's going to drive you to be better. And
Yep.
so if the kid can see that I'm passionate, even when I'm failing, even when I'm lost, even when I'm trying to go through this journey and figure it out like everybody else, it'll make them want to get up and do it and be passionate about whatever that they're passionate about, whether it, that be eyelashes, fingernails, whatever. And so that's just my hope for who I hope they think that I will be.
Right. Man, I love talking to you. Lastly, what advice would you give to a young athlete today who comes from Oakland, who dreams of making it just like you did?
I would say that we're always the underdog. We're always counted out, but we never fail because of where we come from. And so a big piece of who we come from is just having that dog and being out and going to get it. No one's ever going to give you anything. We gotta say, all right, cool. Like, and I think ultimately find someone else that's done it, because there's tons, especially now, there's tons of folks that have done what you want to do, and find that person and just ask them to pour into you. Yeah. Because I think a lot of the times you hear people be like, hey, can I have $20? But what if I can teach you how to get the $20?
You're right.
You never got to ask me for the $20 ever, because now you know how to get that $20 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times instead of me just giving you the $20. Yep. Right? Or what if there was no such thing as procrastination? If I tell you, hey, be at the beach at 6 a.m. tomorrow and you're going to get 10,000, you probably going to get there at 5:30 to make sure you there on time. Right. So you have to approach it the same way. That's the mindset that it has to be, that your money is in the passion that you're trying to drive. So that would be my advice.
That's amazing. Your story truly represents the strength, talent, and unstoppable energy that Oakland pours into its people. Thank you for inspiring not just the next generation of athletes, but leaders, dreamers, and believers everywhere. We're proud to have shared this time with you, and thank you for joining our show.
Of course, anytime.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Alexis Gray-Lawson.
Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining. We'll talk soon. This is one for the books, guys. Pay attention. Pay attention. She just dropped so many gems for you. Wow. This is I'm speechless. I'm out of here.